Imagine for a moment that you're not alone, not even when you're completely alone. And what if I told you that something, a formless, faceless, voiceless presence, has been walking beside you for some time? Something you cannot see, but that feels every one of your thoughts. Something you cannot hear, but that feeds on the silent sound of your heaviest emotions. What if I told you there are entities that drink your energy as if it were water? In the vast esoteric tradition, there exists an idea as ancient as it is disturbing. There are subtle forms, parasitic entities, that cling to the energetic bodies of human beings and feed on their vitality. We're not talking about poetic metaphors or superstitious fears, but about a cosmology carefully articulated by mystics, alchemists, and occultists for centuries. The ancients called them astral larvae. Others, less poetic, called them demons of the invisible plane. In modern times, some interpret them as psychic projections, thought forms, that have taken on autonomous life. But the name doesn't matter. What matters is this: they're here. And you might be feeding one right now without knowing it. Have you felt that inexplicable exhaustion that not even the deepest sleep can dissolve? Have you noticed your mood collapsing for no apparent reason? Have you experienced dark thoughts that seem to arise from a part of you that you don't recognize? These are symptoms many ignore, others medicalize, but that certain wise ones have learned to read as signs of something much deeper, an energetic invasion. This video is not meant to plant fear, but to awaken awareness, because knowledge is the lamp that dissolves the shadow. We're going to explore what these energetic parasites are, how they operate, how they manifest, and most importantly, how to free yourself from their influence. We will dive into Hermetic teachings, the warnings of alchemists like Paracelsus, and the accounts of clairvoyants who, with the eyes of the soul, have observed this invisible ecosystem where emotions crystallize into hungry entities. Prepare for a deep, revealing, and at times unsettling journey. Because sometimes, to reclaim your light, you must look directly at what's been stealing it from you. Before modern science attempted to explain human behavior through neurotransmitters and clinical diagnoses, the sages of the ancient world were already warning about a form of invisible invasion. Ancient peoples didn't need to see with their eyes to recognize the existence of entities operating on subtle planes. They felt, intuited, and above all, taste observed. Through symbols, stories, and myths, they left clues about the existence of energetic forms that are not born and do not die in the physical realm, but that can interfere with the human soul. In Egypt, for example, the concept of the ka and the ba referred to different dimensions of being. The ka was considered a kind of energetic double, vulnerable to external influences. It was said that if the ka weakened, the physical body would become ill, and the spirit would disconnect from its path. This was interpreted not just as a loss of energy, but as an invasion by external forces, invisible entities, that clung to the vital field of the human being. The Gnostics, on the other hand, spoke of the archons, astral entities that manipulated human thoughts and emotions to feed on their suffering. These figures were not psychological metaphors, but perceptible realities to those who had developed inner vision. In their texts, Gnosis warned that the human soul could become prey to such beings if it did not reach a state of inner vigilance. Self-knowledge was the only shield against their influence. In the Vedic tradition, the Upanishads and advanced yogis described the asuras, entities that hindered the spiritual evolution of the individual, especially when their prana or life energy was unbalanced. According to them, prana flows through channels called nadis, and where there is congestion, an energetic nest can form, a fertile ground for parasitic forces, not by chance. Many of these traditions insist on the purification of the body and mind. Before any attempt at spiritual ascension, Western esotericism, from Paracelsus to Franz Barden, documents the existence of what are called astral larvae, entities, formed by obsessive thoughts, unresolved emotions, or addictions. These larvae acquire a kind of semi-autonomy and attach themselves to the human energy field, especially when the person vibrates in fear, resentment, or chronic sadness. Barden wrote that by allowing destructive thoughts, the magician weakened his inner shield and became a host for lower forces. Even in mystical Christianity and Sufism, though expressed in different language, we find reference to the presence of dark, spiritual influences that have no body, but do have intention. The concept of impure spirits or jinns can also be understood as an archetypal form of energetic parasites. They are not necessarily external forces, but catalysts that activate when the spiritual field is fractured, or the ego takes full control of the inner temple. The philosophy behind all these accounts converges on a single truth: the human being does not inhabit only the body. We are multidimensional, and our energetic body is a battlefield where, in each thought and each emotion, a silent war is being fought. These entities do not enter by force. They slip in through the cracks of our unconsciousness, through unhealed traumas, through the emotions we refuse to feel and transform. That is why all traditions insist on the awakening of consciousness as a shield. It is not enough to cleanse the physical body. One must vigilantly watch the inner world with awakened attention, because the shadows that affect us most do not come from the outside but from within. And only when we turn on the light do those shadows lose their power to feed on us. Not all thieves wear ski masks or break in through the door. Some slip silently through the cracks in our energy field, disguised as persistent thoughts, emotions that won't go away, and habits that slowly destroy us. Energetic parasites do not appear as monstrous or visible figures. Their way of operating is much more subtle, more cunning. They camouflage themselves inside us, as if they were part of our identity, but they are not. To understand how these entities function, we must first understand that the human body does not end at the skin. Our biology is intertwined with an electromagnetic field, known in many traditions as the aura or energetic body. This field acts as a protective membrane, but also as an antenna. It absorbs, emits, and resonates with the energies of the environment. When a person lives in chronic emotional states, fear, guilt, hatred, envy, or sadness, this field begins to crack. Think of it like a cracked crystal. It lets in what it once blocked, and those points of weakness are where energetic parasites find their chance to anchor. And they don't do it randomly. They seek vibrational affinity. That means, if your mind is soaked in victimhood, you will attract entities that feed precisely on that frequency. These entities do not possess you like in a horror movie. They begin to subtly influence your decisions, repeating the same mental loops. The loop of "I can't," "No one understands me," "I don't deserve." That becomes their food, because every thought, every emotion is energy, and that energy can be absorbed. Imagine these entities like astral remoras, small creatures that attach to the energy body and slowly suck out vitality. At first, it's barely noticeable, but over time, one feels more tired, more confused, more disconnected from oneself. The desire to move forward fades, motivation dissolves, dark thoughts gain ground, and all this happens without an apparent enemy, because the enemy, if it exists, presents itself disguised as your own inner voice. An energetic parasite can also manifest through addictions, whether it's an addiction to sugar, drama, toxic relationships, or electronic devices. Every addiction implies a closed energy circuit that repeats endlessly. And that constant repetition, that energy recycled without being transformed, becomes fertile ground for these entities. What's most disturbing is that many of these entities manage to get their hosts to protect them. What if they're feeding on your fear of letting them go? What would you do if you realized that certain emotions you thought were yours were actually whispers from something that feeds on you? Not everyone wants to look inward, because looking requires courage, and cutting those ties demands a conscious will. It's no coincidence that in ancient purification rituals, from herbal baths to sacred fires and dances, chants and deep breathing were always included. These elements weren't just aesthetic. They were spiritual technologies, designed to move energy, to close open portals, and to dislodge entities hiding in the folds of the soul. The good news is, these parasites are not invincible, but they cannot be removed with external formulas. They must be faced with awareness. And that is where the real work begins. A deep recognition of our own patterns, and the conscious choice to live from clarity, not from automatism, because only those who know their own shadow can bring it into the light from the center of the soul. Energetic parasites don't just feed on our vitality. They also act as bridges to parallel realities where density reigns. In these realms, consciousness is clouded, willpower is weak, and the soul feels fragmented. To understand this, we must look beyond the physical world and realize that the vibration we emit not only attracts, but also tunes us into specific dimensions of existence. Every intense, sustained emotion, if not transmuted, becomes a key that opens doors. Hatred, for example, doesn't just poison the energetic body. It sharpens our frequency toward planes where conflict, resentment, and pain are the norm. And when a human being constantly vibrates at these levels, they become highly susceptible to external influences, invisible to the human eye, but perfectly detectable by the soul. Ancient sages didn't speak of these influences as myths or metaphors. To them, they were as real as the sun or the earth. In various cultures, Toltec Egyptian, Hindu, the existence of entities wandering around the human energy field was recognized, waiting for a crack, a void, an emotional oversight. These entities were sometimes described as hungry, wandering, or adhesive. They don't have a defined shape, but they do have a constant need for vibrational nourishment. And what's even more disturbing is that these parasites can intertwine with our emotional memory field. Meaning, when someone experiences deep trauma such as abandonment, abuse, loss, or humiliation, and does not heal it, and an echo remains, an unresolved frequency that can become an anchor. For these entities, over time, that emotion not only persists, it is artificially amplified, and the person, without knowing why, relives again and again the same narrative of pain, rejection, or lack. That loop is sustained in part by these invisible presences. But here a deeper component appears. Unconscious consent. It's not enough to suffer an energetic attack for parasitism to occur. The real permission is given by us when we maintain certain mental habits, certain unresolved emotional pacts. Just as a lock is useless without a key, a parasite cannot attach without a frequency that invites it in. This raises important questions. What are our internal alliances? What thoughts do we silently feed each day? What emotions do we defend as if they were part of our identity, when in truth they're just poorly healed scars? The answers to these questions not only reveal our current energetic state, but also the invisible bonds that keep us tied. Some people, when beginning a healing process or deep meditation, feel strange resistance, sensations in the body, thoughts that don't match their personal story, even physical interruptions when trying to go inward. These manifestations aren't always mere psychological blocks. Sometimes they are attempts by these entities to avoid expulsion, because when we raise our frequency, when we breathe deeply, when we choose forgiveness and gratitude, we weaken their anchors, and they know it. That's why many ancestral rituals focused on cutting ties, not only with people or memories, but with entities that had lodged in the energy body for years or even generations, because parasitism can be inherited, especially if there is unresolved karma or lineages burdened with repetitive pain patterns. The path to liberation begins with awareness. By identifying these dynamics, by naming them, we begin to reclaim the power we once gave away. And that's when the alchemical shift occurs. We go from being prey to becoming guardian of our own energy, as if, by turning on the light in a forgotten room, the parasites had no choice but to dissolve in the radiance of awakened consciousness. Living without being drained by energetic parasites is not a luxury. It is a necessity for every soul seeking to grow in awareness and authenticity. But this protection does not come from talismans or secret knowledge outside of you. It is born from your presence, your intention, and your daily spiritual discipline. Below, we unveil powerful practices you can integrate into your life to protect your energy and liberate your field from harmful influences. 1. The power of conscious. Silence. One of the greatest errors of our time is constant noise. We surround ourselves with information, stimulation, and empty conversations. Yet silence is an ancient medicine. Dedicate 10 minutes a day to being completely alone in silence. No music, no guidance, no expectations. This allows your energetic field to reorganize itself naturally. In that silence, your soul recovers its voice, and the parasites lose their power. because they can no longer manipulate a space without distraction. 2. Deep breathing and belly connection. Shallow breathing is a sign of disconnection. Energetic parasites thrive when you are distracted. Rushed or disconnected from your body, breathe deeply, drawing air into your abdomen. This anchors your awareness. Do it several times a day. Place one hand over your navel and another over your heart. Feel the connection between both centers. This gesture reconnects you to your vital energy and cuts the cords that allow the drain. 3. Emotional bond review. Some people act as true energetic drains, not always out of malice, but because they themselves are parasitized. Reflect. Who in your life leaves you exhausted after a conversation? What situations do you repeat without resolution? Cutting or transforming ties is not selfishness, it's wisdom. And if you cannot distance yourself physically, protect yourself energetically through daily visualizations. Wrap yourself in light and return the other person's energy to them, without carrying what is not yours. 4. Cleansing. Baths with natural elements. Water is a natural channel for transmutation. Bathe at least once a week with sea salt, rosemary, or lavender. Visualize all stagnant energy detaching from your body and dissolving down the drain. This simple act is rooted in ancestral purification, rituals, and strengthens your subtle field. 5. Vigilance over your inner dialogue. Your mind can be the greatest parasite if left unobserved. Every self-critical thought, every constant judgment, every unresolved guilt is food for entities that vibrate in distortion. A daily practice of mindful awareness, where you observe your thoughts without identifying with them, is key. It's not about repression, it's about seeing without reacting. By doing this, you begin to dissolve the mental patterns that create cracks where darkness seeps in. 6. Energetic and vibrational nutrition. Remember, you don't just eat for your body, you eat for your field. Dead, processed, chemical-laden foods weaken your physical health and your energetic shields. Choose living, fresh foods that have received sunlight and earth. Bless each meal. This act of awareness turns the ordinary into the sacred, and no dark entity settles where there is constant light. Shielding yourself is not about living in fear, it is about living in power. And power is cultivated, breath by breath, thought by thought. Let every action you take be a pact with your soul, a silent declaration that says, I rule here, this energy is sacred, and no one takes it without my permission. Now imagine for a moment that your energetic field is an ancient castle, carved by centuries of experiences, memories, thoughts, and emotions. Inside it dwells the most sacred part of you, your essence, your divine spark, the light that never goes out. And yet this castle is not impenetrable. The doors and windows of your energy, left open through carelessness, fear, or ignorance, allow the entry of invisible forces, parasitic entities that don't need chains to bind you, only your unconsciousness. We've now walked step by step through the revelation of these subtle forces, how they act, where they hide, and how they feed. And now we reach the most important threshold of this journey, the recognition that you have the power to close those doors. You don't need to be a mystical scholar or live in retreat on a mountain. What's required is presence, clarity, and willtabi, 3 keys that every human being can reclaim when they choose to return to the center of their energy. True spiritual power is not shouted. It is held in silence, in coherence, in small but meaningful actions, in every thought you choose not to feed, in every emotion you decide to transmute, in every relationship you purify, in every meal you bless, in every night when, before sleeping, you cleanse your field with a clear intention. Let only light dwell here. Protecting yourself from energetic parasites is not paranoia, it is spiritual hygiene. Just as you wash your body, you must learn to wash your aura, to clear your mind, to sweep out energies that are not yours. Not because the world is dangerous, but because your energy is precious. And everything precious must be cared for with reverence. This video does not aim to sow fear, but to awaken responsibility. Because where there is consciousness, parasites cannot survive. Where there is light, the darkness recedes. Where there is truth, manipulation dissolves. You've seen the invisible. You've understood that not everything you feel comes from you. You've opened your eyes to the energetic realities that surround us, and that is already a form of liberation. Now the next step is yours. Will you choose to protect yourself? Will you choose to honor your energy as the most sacred thing you possess? Will you choose to live as a conscious guardian of your inner temple? If this content has resonated with you, if you feel it has given you valuable tools, I invite you to share it, like, subscribe, and activate the bell to receive more revelations that transform from deep within. But above all, reflect. Take a moment now to close your eyes and ask yourself, who or what is living inside me that is not me? Awakening is not a sudden event. It is a continuous practice, an act of love toward your own soul. You are not weak. You are not at the mercy of the subtle world. You are the central sun of your energetic field, and the time has come to shine without interruption,